Welcome to today's Women's Business Connection. I'm Sally Harrison with Mesa Chamber. It's so good to see all of you. I miss going though and seeing you in person, but soon, hopefully. Today I'm really excited about today's call. We've got a great speaker that I've gotten to know over the last couple of years, and I'm going to turn it over to Lauren right now, and Lauren's going to introduce our guest. Thank you.
Well, hello, ladies, and welcome to Women Business Connection. So excited to see you. Katey McPherson. So Katey McPherson brings experience in school leadership, prevention, and organizational change with 25 years as a secondary school teacher, guidance counselor, and pre-K through 12 school administrator. Katey's educational career focus is on student social emotional needs, faculty wellness, youth mental health initiatives, social justice, and digital citizenship, and social media responsibility. Katey recently served as the executive director of the Garian Institute, an international teacher and parent training institute rooted in neurobiological teaching strategies. Worried about that one. That one's kind of tricky. Katey currently serves in multiple consultative roles as an advisory board member for Common Sense Media Phoenix and was recently named lead chair of the Town of Gilbert, One Gilbert Youth Mental Health and Wellness Initiative. She also serves as an academic consultant for the West Coast Division of Hazard, Young, and Attea Associates. So Katey, we're excited to have you, and take it away.
Thanks so much. I'm going to try to share my screen and we'll see if it works. For those that just joined, I'm getting a new air conditioner. So if you see random men walking in the background, I apologize. It blew up yesterday, so it's been a little warm. My name is Katey McPherson. As Lauren said, I serve in many roles in the community. I'm so blessed to be a part of Gilbert. Mesa, Chandler is really where I do most of my work, but a former teacher and school administrator in Scottsdale as well, so I have a lot of connections there. Today I really just wanted to focus on what everyone's questions seem to be, and that's how do we take care of our kiddos? How do we take care of our community? Some of you probably saw me speak, I guess it was almost a year ago, probably, regarding suicide prevention. So I thought I would just bring up the stats prior to COVID. So these were the 2018 American College Health Association survey results of 100,000 college freshmen from across the country in 2010 and then in 2018. So as you can see, these are pretty alarming stats, and this was prior to COVID. And so this generation has kind of gotten, in my opinion, a bad reputation for possibly failing to thrive, not being as, active as some parents might like to see them. A lot of parents complaining about being on technology all the time, all sorts of concerns about this generation. But I have to say, I think they're pretty amazing, and they are going to be what gets us through this COVID-19. They really are quite active and inclusive civically. We've never had a generation that is more civically minded. And so as we look at how they're doing from a mental health standpoint, I do think that's something to be aware of, that they were born into a post 9/11 world where their parents kind of hunkered down on them and said, no one's going to hurt my baby, and probably overprotected in many areas. And so that does play into their ability to thrive. And so as we look at some other stats, thoughts of suicide, more than average stress. So regionally, if you've heard me speak on suicide prevention, we're still trending upward. During COVID in Mesa, in Chandler, in Gilbert, we've lost 6 students since March. 4 of them have been between 10 and 12 years old. So our suicide epidemic in our region, in our state, in our nation is off the charts still. I will say that when I speak to the Mayor's Youth Council in Gilbert, which is something I'm aligned with, the kids say, I'm actually liking not being in school. I'm less stressed. I'm getting more sleep. I do miss my friends, but my stress level has gone way down. So there are some positives that are coming out of COVID, but definitely we are still seeing the inability to cope, access to healthcare and behavioral health resources. I will say regionally, however, most of the students that we have lost to suicide have been upper income Caucasian students. And so we're not seeing regionally, at least, the suicide rate to be as high. Now, when we look statewide and we look, let's just say with state, when we look statewide, our Native American populations obviously have a very high rate of suicide, especially adult male. And then, of course, we have other ethnicities that struggle, but white and affluent in Chandler, Gilbert, and Mesa is our candidate. And most of the students and families that I've met with, they have hundreds of friends, they are very involved, they are taking advanced courses. It really, the high risk category of high achieving is now an actual label that the CDC has come out with and said high achieving kids are an at-risk group, as opposed to maybe in years prior, we looked at our Title I population of our impoverished students. So a lot of it has to do with coping and resiliency. And so as I think about COVID, I think about what can we do? I don't know how many of you have seen a model like this, but this is a typical public health model that Arizona State uses daily in their work. So what we want to provide our community during this time, both at school and at home, and if we can't be in school, then we have to really focus on this community coming together piece, is that we have to have awareness campaigns. We have to have skill building. It's not enough to say to a high school student, be resilient, be strong. These kids have so much access to technology. They have so much access to resources. We have to lead them to it. And what they're looking for from us is an emotional blueprint. If you as my mom or dad say, I'm here for you, they are so savvy. They're like, show me. Show me how you're here for me. I want that emotional blueprint that I can fall back on. And in some of our homes, although we have resources, that doesn't mean that we're showing up or that we're present for them. So another silver lining, I think, of COVID is we have been forced to be present. We've been forced to maybe put down our phones, put down our laptops, and really gather as a family and say, how are we going to tackle this pandemic? Moving into the SUM category. So when you look at a school as a community as a whole, we want all students, all faculty, staff, families, communities to get these awareness campaigns. Some of our students, some of our adults in our communities are going to need specialized care. This is where we're faltering a little bit. We have people in Chandler doing this, people in Gilbert doing this, people in Mesa doing this. And Sally and I have been pushing and pushing and pushing through different avenues, mayors, councils, committees, education committees. Like, can we all come together as a region and really get this peer training, this targeted community efforts, and really come together kind of as a trifecta in my mind of those three towns and cities to really tackle this head on. So all students, all adults need the first column. Some people are going to need extra care. And then a few of our students and a few adults are going to need super specialized care. And our schools currently, many of them do not have this specialized care. Many of the students that are showing up to our schools are beyond the reach of the school. They may even be beyond the reach of a nonprofit that specializes in specialized care. And so when we look at crisis resources in Maricopa County, we have about 225 adolescent beds. That means on any given day, if a student says, I think I want to kill myself, if parents take them in, most of them are going to hit a wait list. Most of them are going to sit in an ER waiting for a bed to open at a facility. Some facilities are great. Some are not so great. And so as we look at access to resources during COVID, we are still very limited on what we have. And now with students not going to school, we're going to have to be extremely creative and innovative in our communities to mobilize and say, this is what we can do during this time, that the students are not allowed to attend campus. And that's really my biggest concern is I think parents, at least in my experience and what I'm seeing online, are thinking like, oh, the school is going to save us. The school is going to have all of these things. The school can't even see straight right now. The school is desperately trying to keep students and not have them go to an online academy and lose $9,000 per student. So they can't make plans for these types of things until they get their funding and they understand what their budget is and all of those things that you're reading about. So just to kind of wrap up this piece, we have many students doing really well. We have a few students moving into distress. This is where we're missing the mark. This is where parents, schools, communities, grandmas, grandpas, anybody in children's lives really have to hone in and pay attention. We want students to go from well-being into distress and back to well-being. We want to stretch them with stress, good stress. What we don't want is them moving from the second column distress into crisis. And that's what's continuously happening. On the gender front, I will say that we've lost 4-1 boys over girls. That doesn't mean that girls aren't struggling. Girls attempt suicide and go into crisis 25 times as much. They just don't complete. Boys usually use more lethal means because they have more testosterone. They usually complete their plan. Girls tend to go outward and tell 17 people, this is what I'm going to do. Those other little girls get together and tell moms and principals, and we intervene. Boys tell nobody. And maybe if they're lucky, they'll tell somebody online. And we haven't trained our students, who are the first line of defense, that if another student says something to you about being in crisis, what to do. There's still a very large stigma about snitches get stitches. If I report to anybody about my friend that said he's going to do this, he's going to self-harm, he's going to harm somebody at school, he's going to blow up the school, he's going to shoot up the school, there's still a huge stigma in reporting. And so as I look at COVID, I look at how do I get this information to parents? How do I teach them? Your kid is going to go from well-being into distress, maybe into a slight crisis and all the way back. And it is your responsibility. It is a call to action that daily you are taking the temperature or the barometer of your family and really figuring out where are each of my kiddos, where am I as an adult? I mean, this is not just a kid thing. This is an adult thing as well. And so that really kind of just summarizes the public health model. I just have 2 last slides and then I'll open up for questions. I think now more than ever, we have to come together as a village. And what these students continue to tell me is when I report, adults don't know what to do. They're not competent. I don't feel like I can trust them. And when I go to them with something big, they either totally overreact or they underreact. And so I stopped going to them. And so training for adults is essential to have them become socially competent about the world that these students are living in. You have to remember any 18 to 20-year-old lived through 9/11, lived through the Boston bombing, lived through Parkland, was born post-Columbine. So their whole school landscape and thought about safety and the world is much different than somebody who grew up in the 70s or 80s or before that. And so these kids continue to say, you asked me to go tell somebody. You asked me if I'm not doing well that I should go tell somebody. But the villagers, the adults, don't know what to do. And so I continuously see that. I have at least 15 private messages a night on Facebook of people that I know, like I have met them in person, and they don't say a word to me, but they private message me on Facebook and say, my 15-year-old son hasn't come out of his room in a month. He's very depressed. I don't know what to do. How can you help me? Who can I go see? So there's a stigma about getting your child help too. And so for me, during COVID, post-COVID, there are going to be some short-term effects of this for all of us, and there are going to be some long-term effects. And I don't know what they are yet, but we're already seeing prior to this an uptick in all of these types of behaviors. I get a little worried when it's very quiet because I get worried that people are frozen, and it's easy to be frozen in this landscape when your brain is constantly scanning the universe for the next threat. And all of us, our nervous systems are totally scanning for threats, and some of them are real, as Sally pointed out earlier. So lastly, what can we do? I think anywhere you go, if you can be talking to people about the essential pieces of child development. Kids need to be outside. If you don't want to go outside in 118 degrees, perhaps you find somewhere else that they can do that. Movement. Kids have to be moving their body. They have to have physical touch, and they have to have some sort of purpose or connection. Those are the 4 pillars that we start teaching in pre-kindergarten all the way through pre-K through 20 and up. And I look at these 4 pillars and I think those are for adults too. My best days are when I get all 4 of those elements. And COVID is hard when we're telling people stay away from people. It defies what our bodies and our minds need. And so I guess I would just encourage you, as you're out and about in your own circles and communities, how can we teach more people? This is what we're going to need a whole bunch of, because if we ever get back to the school in person, none of these elements are going to be able to be met. None. I mean, the connection piece may be a little bit. They're saying we're not going to be able to do that. And so I'm deeply concerned about how do we get kids what they need while they're at home, and as we transition to school, whenever that may be, what does that look like? Are there opportunities where administrators and superintendents can be creative and innovative? Maybe they're running in place. Maybe they're hugging themselves. I don't know. I've been brainstorming with colleagues about how we do this, but that's really what I wanted to share today. There's so much noise online. There are so many anxious parents. I'm in a bunch of different Facebook groups with moms, and I read the comments and I'm like, it's gonna be okay, but we gotta bring it down a notch, and we have to really start talking about these type of principles. So I'll open it up for questions, discussion. Please feel free to jump in.
Hey, Katey, can we unshare so we can see everybody? Okay. And just thank you. I mean, I know how much when you say you get, messages all the time. I know it is truly all the time because you shared some of that with me, and I can't even imagine what you have on your shoulders trying to help parents and teachers and everybody else. We do have a couple of questions for you in the chat box. So are you able to share your PowerPoint? Some folks would like to have copies of that.
Absolutely.
If you could email it to me, I'll send it out to the group.
Sure. On the information and stats and possible and special needs. So the American College Health Association stats, I would imagine those include all students at the universities, but I am not sure, so I will find out. As far as specialized resources, there are several Facebook groups that I'm aware of locally. There's also the MELMED Center, the SARC Center. Those are specifically for students with ADHD and spectrum disorders. New Way Academy is a wonderful school that has a resource center, and the school is only for students that have an IEP who are special needs. So I will attach all of this information to my PowerPoint and get that to Sally. Facebook groups for local parents. So that's a loaded question. So when I recommend Facebook groups, know that I'm recommending 90% of what you see is going to be awesome, and 10% is going to be a lot of noise. And so I would say parents of high school students is a great way. If you have a high school student or somebody going off to college, that's a good group to join. There's a group called Look a Squirrel, which is a resource for parents that have students that have any sort of disability disorder, spectrum disorders, ADHD, ODD, OCD, you name it. There are about 10,000 parents in that group that share ideas and resources. They invite experts in to speak on Zoom. Really great resource. I would also say for counseling resources, specialists are very expensive. I'm not sure if it's common knowledge, but both ASU East and ASU Maine offer counseling services to the community, even if you don't live in Tempe or Mesa. So you can access counseling resources there. There's also 2 online apps that I find really helpful that are counseling resources, Headspace and Talkspace. You can get online and do telehealth with a specialist. I also know that a lot of local therapists have a sliding scale. So if you don't have insurance, sometimes it's actually better that you don't have insurance because they can work with you on a sliding scale. So I have, oh my gosh, probably 20 people in my network that every day I'm referring people to. So I will list those people with their contact info. If you have a student or know somebody that's on Access, a lot of counselors are able to take Access as well. So if you have an underprivileged student on state insurance, there are actually more resources for them than a lot of people know about. So those are the resources I can think of off the top of my head. I am sort of mobilizing, I'm calling them community learning circles. So I am anticipating my 4 daughters are going to be online until January. I do not think we're going to be going back to school in person. And so I'm mobilizing within my own little group of friends and network that 5 students per study group will get together 3 times a week. And a teacher or tutor will come to one house and will augment the instruction that my kids are getting online, because I know my daughters need that in-person interaction, and it's the only way I can figure out how to get them what they need. So I am spreading the word within my friendship group, on my Facebook page, in my community groups, that we need to be prepared that even if your school district decides to go back in person, the likelihood that something's going to shut down and you're going to have to pivot online and go back and forth online in person is very likely. And so I just think everybody needs to be as prepared as they can, and they need to start doing that right now. Training resources to prepare people to identify. Okay, so yes, the American Federation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP.org, offers free training. There's another training called Say Something. There's another training called QPR. All of those are free resources. Mental health first aid is also a free resource. So I will list all of those programs in my email, but all of those have online training programs that will train you to look for signs of distress. What I will say off the top of my head is it's very cryptic, it's very insidious, and everything you want to know about anybody planning a suicide is on their phone or on their laptop. There has not been a child that we have lost where I have said to the parents, did you find something on their phone or laptop? And they said, it was all there. He was 17. I didn't think I needed to check. He was a good kid. If I had only checked the phone. I have a very good friend through this process that I've met, and she said, Katey, I took his phone away every day. He was such a jerk. I took his phone and I put it on my nightstand and said, you can't have your phone. And after he completed, she said, I looked in the phone and he was screaming for help. He was crying out to his friends. All of his friends knew that this was his plan. And I had all this information in my hand, but because he was being such a jerk, I thought he was being a jerk. And what I was seeing in front of me was depression manifesting itself as anger. And so what I can say to parents is check the phones, monitor the phones, have apps that monitor the phones. I don't care if they're 18 years old. You should have some way to at least have a little bit of a baseline of how they're doing. Signs of distress, also drastic changes in behavior. If they love doing an activity and they quit it, something's going on. If they're isolating in their room, if their appetite's going up and down, if they're sleeping more or less, any sort of drastic change in behavior typically is where they're moving from distress into crisis. May not be suicidal, but when you see a drastic change in behavior, something's going on. And I think a lot of moms, I don't have boys, but a lot of the moms that I've spoken to that have lost their sons have said, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk to me about the hard things. And so I wish I would have gone back and just gotten a little more quiet with him, or taken a drive in the car, or really just honed in on, like, you seem like something's off, to see if I could have gotten to the bottom of it. So I always encourage the technology. There's no mystery to their lives. Everything you want to know about kids is on their phone. And even if it's not your kid, checking your kid's phone to see how the friendship group is doing is like gold. Everything you want to know is there. And that goes for grandparents too, and encouraging your own children to supervise the phones as well. The community learning circles, can others set these up as well? So there are a ton of resources online. One of them is Prenda, Prenda. There are also Arizona Connections, K-12 Connections. There are a ton of materials, curriculum, that if you are a go-getter and you want to house a little, I'm calling them germ circles. Like, I have my own germ circle. These 5 kids are going to be my kids' germ circle. Yes, so there are professionals doing this. So Lively Minds Tutoring is in Chandler. They have certified, background check, fingerprinted tutors that they are deploying into these community learning circles that are bringing the state standards and curriculum with them, from K through 12, AP, IB, you name it. So there are professionals doing that, and then there are moms in the community that are like, I'm going to buy the curriculum. Me and another mom are getting together and we're going to do this. So tons of resources out there. I want to encourage everybody, and I say this with truly the utmost honor for my profession and my colleagues. We as parents are on our own. The district does not have the bandwidth to save us. And so we have to save ourselves. And so gather together, get the people in your network that are teachers, educators, former teachers, grandmas, gather them all together and make a plan, because that's really how we're going to make it through the next 6 to 12 months. And it looks like Melissa posted a resource for her younger kids.
Any other questions? Did everybody get their questions answered that were in the chat? I will mention that this Friday is our Government Affairs Committee meeting, and Dr. Andy Forlis, the new superintendent of Mesa Public Schools, is our speaker. So if you want to know what the plan is for Mesa Public Schools, email me and let me know that you want an invitation to that Zoom call, and I'll get you that. I do think it's going to be interesting, because I can only imagine that what their plan is this week probably will be very different next week and the following week and the following week.
Well, and if you haven't looked yet, I mean, the Mesa Public Schools board meeting is tonight, and they have a draft of the plan is available online. And I'm honest with you, when I reviewed it this morning, I was like, wow, like this is a lot different than what I expected.
I do know that they're mobilizing family outreach teams. So I have a friend that's a Mesa Public Schools social worker. And so she's been asked to be like the lead for this region of the district. So I know that they have made some fantastic plan A through Z, and that's really all they can do at this point. I just know that especially in our neighborhoods where resources are limited, it's going to take all of us on the other side of the fence to really go help. Because it's easy, obviously, for me to bring a tutor in and pay this tutor to come, you know, share with these 5 kids. But for parents that are working, parents that have 2 jobs, single parents, parents that don't have resources, we're all going to just have to help out.
If we know people
Katie?
that are, I have one question. If we know people that are, for example, they were substitute teachers, they may have been teachers in a past lifetime and they want to volunteer, who would they talk to provide some of these community circles to parents?
I think Andy Forlis in Mesa, contacting her office and just saying, you know, here's a list of people that are willing and ready to help. obviously those people have to decide how much they want to help, if they want to be in other people's homes, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Andy would be the best person to start with, and then she can kind of, or Mike Garcia, he's in charge of academic services. He would probably be, and he oversees all the social workers. So his name's Mike Garcia, and he's at Mesa Public Schools.
Thank you.
Oh, great. And Kristen,
Of all the, oh, go ahead.
no, Kristen just posted she's with JCC, and they provide counseling services as well.
Okay, I just have a quick question. So my daughter is a junior at Gilbert. She has an IEP and she has a learning disability. So I am definitely concerned about keeping her, like you said, online the entire time. She gets additional help, additional support. Is there something that you can send in your email that I can get on? And I haven't been able to contact, I've tried, but I haven't been able to get a hold of her counselor or, you know, have any of these conversations. But I definitely want to be prepared as a parent for everything she needs.
Yeah, my recommendation would be keep on them.
Right.
Make sure that they know that you know that this is a federal document and it needs to be adhered to, COVID or not. They're well aware of that, but as I said, the bandwidth is, I don't envy them. And so something to keep in mind is what are the things that you can do at home that would meet those needs? And then do you need additional support like an advocate or additional resources to help her? Because I can tell you right now, just having been an administrator, if a parent came to me and said, my student's on an IEP and here are her yearly goals and here are the modifications, there's no way for me to meet all of those at home. There's just no possible way.
Right.
How can
Right.
we as a family and school meet it? And I think the more open-minded and open-hearted you can be, the better. Sometimes as moms and dads, our anxiety gets in the way and we start going after the wrong people and what we need to be going after. If you're going to go after anybody, go after Governor Ducey by sending an email and saying, I have a special needs student. My expectation as a taxpayer and a citizen is that I need resources and support, and I need you to dedicate funding to it, because the district's hands are completely tied right now. And so that would be just my creative and innovative way to circumvent your energy in the right spot.
I like the idea of having a group meet. I think that's a great idea. I'm going to request that maybe there's a group of them together that share a class. So
yeah, and so
for
me, like I'm getting the same ability level kiddos together with my daughters in math and English, because those are my deepest concerns at this point. Is I don't want the foundational skills to be lost. I don't want more loss of learning. So I'm tackling those first, right? So if your daughter has a couple of friends that are in her resource classes, or that she knows that maybe are about the same ability level, a really good tutor like from Lively Minds can differentiate instruction in a small group. And at least they will then have that social interaction too. Somebody, Alyssa asked about contact at Chandler Unified. I would contact Brenda Vargas, V-A-R-G-A-S. Her email is vargas.brenda@cusd80.com. She is over all of the district's social workers, counselors, and she's in charge of anything that has to do with social emotional wellness. So on the mental health front, that would be her. If you're looking for an academic contact at Chandler, that if it's secondary, it would be Craig Gilbert, gilbert.craig@cusd80.com. If it's elementary, it would be Frank Narducci, narducci.frank@cusd80.com.
Katie, do you actually have these emails all memorized?
In my head, yeah. Well, I think because it's just their last name, first name, but yeah, I email them all the time. So yeah, they're wonderful people, but I have to say, I do not envy anybody in the position, because as Melissa pointed out, tonight's board meeting is going to say one thing and 17 days from now, it's going to be completely different. So I just stopped watching the board meetings because my anxiety was going through the roof.
Any other questions? No.
And Sean put down, if you know anyone stressed about the college planning process, she's an independent educational consultant. And that's like a whole other, you need to do a thing with Sean, because that's like a whole other, I mean, with a junior, I mean, it's the testing and ACT and SAT and all of that.
You know, it's not a question. It's just, I do know of another place that helps, you know, kids and parents together. You guys can, you know, go in and talk together and separate. And that's Touchstone in Mesa. And they also do Take Access.
Oh, great. That's great. I also forgot churches. I mean, my church has free counseling, so that's always a resource as well. I know Mesa United Way, Mark Young has a ton of resources as well. I think the problem is what we're trying to do in Gilbert through One Gilbert is to have one hub, one regional hub of information, one page, because everyone's like doing their silos and nobody knows exactly where to look. One thing I did forget that I'd love for everybody to think about doing is putting the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, going to like the website and taking a picture of it and saving it on your camera roll in your phone under your favorites. We have a teen lifeline that is staffed 24/7 in the state of Arizona, and we have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, as well as Impact La Frontera in Arizona. So those suicide prevention hotlines are not just to talk about suicide. A parent can call and say, I'm going to strangle my 12-year-old, I need help. You can call anytime, any day of the week. And so I think a lot of people think of those as just if somebody is in deep crisis. There are clinicians standing by to talk to you about everyday things. And so I have it saved in my camera roll. When a parent calls and says, my kid just says this, I just send it and they can call, they can dispatch somebody to the house if you need. And all of our police departments also have a critical incident team that can come out to the house and talk to students, parents, adults, etc. So we have the resources, they're here. They really are here. It's just getting the word out in the right way.
Very good. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you. It's nice to see people. I haven't seen people in a really long time. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. And as I said, when your anxiety goes up and you want to call the school and scream at them, take a deep breath and figure out where would my energy best be served. And it is above them. It really is above them. And the more we can get to the top and really ask for more funding and resources, the better we can serve our communities.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think Lauren's gonna wrap some things up with some announcements. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
All righty. Thanks again, Katie. That was wonderful to hear about all those resources. So we appreciate you and all of your input and resources that we can use. There are a few things coming up, so I just want to go over those with you really quick. Mesa Chamber Young Professionals, the relaunch is tomorrow, Wednesday, July 15th from 3:30 to 4. The Mesa Chamber Member Orientation is this Thursday, the 16th from 8 to 9. They're going to talk about the top 10 ways to promote your business digitally with the Chamber. We've got the Mesa Chamber Government Affairs, which is this Friday, the 17th from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. That's the one that Sally had referred to earlier about reopening of Mesa Public Schools. Our superintendent, Dr. Andy Forlis, will be there. So make sure you get online and RSVP to any of those if you're interested. And then we have kind of another group very similar to Women Business Connection. It's called the Good News Girlfriend Club. Victoria Trafton is on the call, and she's our fearless leader of that group. And it's just an amazing group. All of us women get together and we talk about the positive things in our life that week. And every week I get on the call and I look forward to hearing about all these women, what they're up to, what are their challenges, but mostly what is the positives happening in their life. And it's inspiring. And so we hope that you guys can join us for that. We also have, last but not least, we've got the hydration donation campaign happening still. So if you want to donate water, we'd love your support with that. And the Mesa Mesa Cares Small Business Reemergence Technical Assistance Program. So if you need expert help getting your business back on track, apply now to get professional resources and training for free. There's more details about the Mesa Cares Small Business Reemergence Technical Program on the website for the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. So again, we just want to thank you all for coming. We hope you have a blessed day and stay cool. Take care, you guys.
Thank you, Lauren. Bye, everyone.